So we're going to be going to YouTube. So hello everybody. This is the podcast for Never Odd or Even for Oh What Fun, and I'm just going to play our media to get started. So that'll welcome everybody. Just give me a moment. Here we go. Very professional here. And why is that taking so long? That even played before when we played it earlier, and now it's not working. But that's all good. All good, all good. Just seeing if we're successfully going live. Yes, we are. We are currently live to YouTube. Yes. Fantastic. All right. I'm just going to copy paste that and send that out to all the places.
He's forever found.
And go to there. Don't know why my media is not working, but hey, we're just having some fun here. So we're just going to put that there and paste that there in case anyone's looking. Anyway, we're going to record this and it's going to work. So here we go. This is the intro track.
Out on the third planet closest to the sun, there's a special celebration, and it sounds quite fun. A jolly old fellow brings toys to everyone on a holiday they call Christmas.
Join Odd Rev, Hunter Mitch, Rev J, and Science Officer Lindsay Cullen for a Never Odd or Even Christmas special. Oh, what fun! We'll be exploring Gremlins, Jingle All the Way, the Guardians of the Galaxy Christmas special, and Die Hard as a Christmas movie, exploring the themes that are found in those as a Never Odd or Even production from 3 o'clock this Sunday, the 18th of December.
Relax, buddy. I'm not about to hit a Santa Claus.
A song, high above the tree, with a voice heard.
Die Hard is not a Christmas movie.
Because you never can tell. There just might be a gremlin in your house.
Well, we've had a couple of gremlins in our house today, and I have to say the voiceover person sounds a lot more upbeat than I do. Words getting around. I've passed my COVID test this morning, which is the one test that I didn't want to pass this year. But Merry Christmas to everybody from Never Odd or Even. And today we're going to be exploring a number of Christmas movies, or maybe debating what a Christmas movie is. We're going to be looking at Die Hard. Then we're going to jump across to Gremlins. And then we're going to jingle all the way with Arnold Schwarzenegger and finish up with the Guardians of the Galaxy Christmas special. So that's going to be a bit of a fun-filled hour and a bit. So stay with us. Now we've got some regular faces. Thanks, Science Officer Linz, for joining us, and Hunter Mitch. Science Officer Linz, obviously from Deep Faith 9 and from Voyager, and Hunter Mitch has been an absolute star in Loki. So we've in the Sacred Timeline. But we're also joined by a new face today, Rev J. Thanks for joining us today, Rev J. And we're going to be looking at all of these. So this is just a casual conversation that actually sometimes gets deep into theology. around sci-fi, and now we're moving into action movies. So I guess I'm going to start out by letting each of our panelists today begin by answering the question: what makes a movie a Christmas movie? Jay, do you want to go first with that? You're our guest. We'll have our new guest. What is it that makes a movie a Christmas movie for you?
Oh, I think for me, apart from the fact that there needs to be snow and there needs to be jingle bells and Christmas decorations, because that's just the diehard that I am. There also needs to be some really good gushy, not over the top, but really good gushy emotions and things where you go, oh, isn't that lovely? And it's just a really good enjoy the season thing where I don't too much.
Yeah, cool. Hunter Mitch, you want to give us your Christmas movie criteria?
Yeah, I went slightly more literal and I broke it into, is it a Christmas movie or a movie set at Christmas? So
Yes.
can you take the plot or the story or like at least the main arc and transpose it to any other part of the year? And if so, it's just a movie set at Christmas. If Christmas, certain elements of it are things that you cannot change, then it's a Christmas movie. So, for example, gifts can be a birthday thing, which can be an all year thing. So just because you received a present doesn't necessarily automatically make it Christmas.
Yep.
I like
Linz?
scientific sort of approach, Hunter Mitch. That's a great. I wanted to actually say I think there's a bunch of trope movies, and you look for how many of those science, like clearly the setting of snow, big one, but even things like inevitably during the movie we'll be watching another TV. That's a very, very clear trope. Music becomes Christmas music. Wonderful possibilities with some used creepy Christmas music. I thought was really. So there's some clear tropes that getting home is part of the Die Hard one. You know, getting to be with your family, get there or not. So I think there's a whole bunch of those little themes that come through, and you find them in Christmas movies.
Yeah, no, I think that's covered it really, really well. I mean, I really love absurd Christmas movies. In our household, we love to go into the unusual places, and we're certainly going to be doing that today. But there are those feelings of community, togetherness, themes of what does it mean to be at home. And also I think there's this whole thing around gift giving. Even though we do give gifts at different times of the year, there is that sense in which there are flavors of Christmas. One of the things that I did note was that a few years ago we had Christmas time at the movies monopolized by Star Wars releases and Harry Potter releases, and so it kind of got a little bit that the whole Christmas movie idea kind of got usurped by the Boxing Day release kind of movement. So it's got to be more than it just happened to be Christmas time for me, I think, as well. Well, look, let's jump into the most controversial of our Christmas movies. I went out to dinner with friends the other day, and they had a chalkboard sign up, and it said, Die Hard is a Christmas movie, ? This has been a hot debate, a really significant issue that has been tossed around by so many. It's remarkable how solidly people will actually argue this case. Die Hard, a Christmas movie.
I even heard another debate going, if you agree that Home Alone is a Christmas movie, then Die Hard is just Home Alone for adults. So there's that element as well, where it's like, if one is, and one
Yeah.
isn't, one isn't. So I have that one's the one that's most on the border for me, where it's like there are elements where it only makes sense for it to be at Christmas, like how empty Nagasaki Tower is for a Christmas party, and therefore the security is at the weakest. But then there are elements of, well, that kind of plot could happen anytime, So that's it is the most on the border in terms of my Christmas movie / set at Christmas.
Yeah.
I do have to say that one of the things I was thinking about Die Hard is I think we need the movie producers and directors that if they name themselves as a Christmas movie, I think with Die Hard, you're quite right, Mitch, that at a different time of the year and just have it inter. But they've chosen Christmas, and they've deliberately then posed, casual and shocking violence tropes and Christmas setting, and I think they've done because that's part of what they're aiming for with the film. So I guess they've chosen to make it a Christmas movie.
I think we Sorry, go Jay.
Also a little bit of that going home, and that idea. I think, Will, you said it, but really, except for in America where Thanksgiving might actually be the time where they go home, but for us, it's going home and joining at Christmas, and so that's the reason for the journey. The other stuff makes it interesting, but it's all of that. That's the Christmassy side for me in that particularly. It's the going to be family together, even though we don't always do that well.
Certainly the writers in Die Hard managed to tick the box pretty early on in the film. So we've got, I was watching it the other day, and we're less than 6 minutes 30 into the film. We've already mentioned Christmas 4 times. We've had a Christmas rap song, and Jesus even gets a mention within the first 6 minutes. But I'm not sure it's the way that we would normally want to be mentioning Jesus at Christmas time. So certainly the references are there, and that. So one of the things that I want to do for each of these movies, and you can have a bit of a think about it more for the others, but I've been listening to one of my favorite podcasts recently, the Dura Sisters podcast. Check them out; they do Star Trek stuff, and I really enjoy listening to their stuff. But they when they're doing an episode of Star Trek, they say, well, let's try and describe the episode in the most obtuse or worst way possible. So I'll give you an example for Die Hard. New York cop New York cop visits wife at work after marital concerns and issues. How about that one? How might you describe the yep. Party crashes? Love it.
Yeah,
I think with
this is framed around that whole stuff, isn't it? And I'm actually deal with that in a bit more depth. It's very strange, and then by the end they're in one of the hands, having a kiss. So I don't. I've seen more of this sort of exploration that sometimes you get in a Christmas movie.
Especially because they focused on a lot of the violence. And I think with the Christmas theme is that it's not suffers, it gets a bit of a rap, because when we think of Christmas, we're thinking of it as one trope or one thing, whereas actually it has lots of genres underneath it. So similar with the book YA, there's people class books as young adults, but there's actually so many genres underneath it. And so when we think of Die Hard, we're like, oh, is it a Christmas movie? Is it not? It's like, it's an action movie for Christmas time. So like you said, Lindsay, they purposely set it at Christmas, and I don't really know that many around that time movies that are set at Christmas. So let's have an action movie at Christmas time so that we can enjoy different genres of the holidays. So,
Jay, have you got an obtuse description for us?
I was wondering whether we could. I'd pick on your New York cop, but helps to bring someone out of retirement.
Oh, yes. Yep. Out of retirement. Well, one of the things I noticed, and I'll pick up on Hunter Mitch, you picked up on, is this this idea that we have this image of Christmas. It's about peace and harmony. It's about everything turning out okay. And if we're going to take a biblical perspective on Christmas, especially in the year of Matthew, then it's actually a time of significant violence. And Mary and Joseph and Jesus don't get to return home after they've had their Christmas in Bethlehem. There's nowhere for them to stay, and so it's actually not a time of peace and harmony, but a time of chaos and violence and struggle. And we often don't see Christmas cards that reflect that. I don't know whether they'd sell.
I wonder whether that's because we want to go back to what is the safe peace, joy, love, and get out of that. I mean, you look at the world today and the stuff on the news about Ukraine, and you can think, how on earth are they going to celebrate Christmas in that? Surely all they want is to be, let's just say, be over in Australia, maybe get some sunshine. You never know. But it's almost that yearning for something that we can't touch. Just, it interests me.
Yeah.
I think another thing we can't touch is the to see justice done and right be accomplished. Typically, our Christian culture, they will build up, someone who's woman, and then part feeling of things coming together at the end is that the people get their comeuppance, whether it's falling, in Die Hard, or whether it's the lady getting her stair chair. There's this sense of wanting to see just.
Yeah, it's kind of not Christmas till we see Hans Gruber fall from the Nakatomi complex, is it? I mean, it's and it's such a hands-on. I mean, there's there's lots of death in this movie, and it's kind of distant, and it's gunfire, and it's faceless. We don't really know the names of many of the henchmen who actually lose their lives, but at the end of this movie, it's very personal. It's Bruce Willis looking deeply into the eyes of I've just forgotten his name. It's COVID. What's his name?
Hans.
No, the other guy, the actor.
Alan Rickman.
That's right. Bruce Willis looking deeply into the eyes of Alan Rickman as he lets him go, and he falls to his death. So it's very personal at the end of this.
It is, and I wanted to.
Sorry, Lindsay.
I was just going to say, I wanted to pick up your comment at Jesus Christ getting a mention, because it was one of the movie. I mean, I noticed a number of things that sort of dated smoking, and do you think the baby will mind me having a drink, and so forth. But the use of blasphemy, of references to Jesus Christ as a stuck out to me, and it really. Now, what is that? What is that all about? What's the culture when we say Jesus Christ as a effing Christ, or whatever it might be? Boring upon, and how might that actually be part of culture around Christmas movies and Christian feeding into that?
I think I read somewhere that, for example, for Christ's sake, it used to be like one of the worst curses that you could ever use, and then it just became I guess so widely used that it stopped being the curse, the curse word. So we moved to other things, and so with Jesus Christ being a swear word, I think it's maybe also commentary on how Christianity is the majority when it comes to religion, and has the most freedoms when it comes to religious beliefs, especially in the US, which is where this is all set and where the producers are set and where the writers are set. And so we have more liberties when it comes to being able to use the Lord's name in vain, because we are the majority of, and we're not going to use Allah's name in vain, for example, because we're not going to punch down, because they're still in the minority and they still have a lot of hate crimes happen to them. So I think it's a safe word, like a safe curse word, if that makes sense, to be able to use. So maybe not even a commentary on Christmas at all. It's just just something that we can use with that the majority will get.
Yeah. It's the majority is actually what I was getting at, in that the very sort of identity of Christianity has become culture, that we see it in terms of swear. Also, that Christmas becomes this thing which not having, and yet when we look at it, as we look at these, very little at all to do with the Christian story.
It's become very secular. I can't say that word.
Secular.
Secular.
Yeah.
So, if we could move on to Gremlins, I have to admit,
there were a couple of things I wanted to do before moving on to Gremlins.
Okay.
Just don't want to move on too quickly. Yep. I did just want to note a couple of little goofy bits that I really enjoy picking out. The journalist that we have in Die Hard. He plays the same role in Ghostbusters. Somebody who is really completely absorbed with himself, paying no attention to the bigger story, and creating chaos and havoc for everybody. So obviously that's his jam. So that's something I wanted to just pick up on. William Atherton is his name, and he's got one of my favorite lines in any of these kind of action genres from Ghostbusters, where he's actually asking a question about whether or not the energy, the power generators were switched off by him, and he has a good comeback there. So the other thing I just wanted to mention quickly about this movie is the way in which the Christmas motifs are used in this. So we've got the great ho ho ho. Now I have a machine gun being used with a Santa hat as a way of delivering a little present to the rest of the group. So there's quite a lot of other Christmas references that are actually here that pick that up for us. Any other final thoughts on Die Hard before we move on?
I really needed to point out that, one of the other things that Japan really struck me as really bizarre was that the making the joke about Pearl Harbor didn't work out, so we get. I mean, it's a joke for an American or a Western audience. Mouth of a Japanese person, it wasn't at all something or even makes sense to someone who was. I just thought that was worth pointing out. The other thing, delighted to see the mention of BSD. Computer is booting up, which of course is Berkeley's contribution, a type of Unix, although the 9.2 was obviously wrong because BSD actually stopped at about, I think, version 4 before it's freebie imitators and so forth. That's really important. And I guess just the last Christmas trope, I don't know if it was the final line, but near the final line, was it Argyle, the limo driver, who goes, "Celebrate Christmas. I definitely want to be around for New Year."
Yeah. Jay, any final thoughts as we move from Die Hard onto our other movies?
Oh, I must admit, as I think about Christmas and decorations and stuff like that, I see all that glass splashing to the ground and looking pretty until you stand on it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. And that's one of the things about this movie too, is that all of this stuff that Bruce Willis, the tough New York cop, does with no shoes and in a singlet, which I note slowly changes color from white to dark black by the end of the movie. Very, very exciting. So final things we can draw out of Die Hard: if you're having marital problems, best way to actually repair them will be to get into a conflict with terrorists. Good way to get your marriage back on track, should that actually happen. So if you're wanting to give somebody some good advice there. The other thing to bear in mind, I think we can learn out of this, is that we can make fists with our toes to make us feel better after we've been flying on an aeroplane. Yep. So that's Die Hard. Gremlins. Hunter Mitch, do you want to kick us off with Gremlins? You had some stuff to go with there.
Yeah, my secret is that I watched Gremlins for the first time ever on Friday.
Ooh,
and
goodness.
So
fresh eyes. That's great.
Yeah, I know a lot of people really nostalgic to Gremlins, and this is one of my set at Christmas movies as opposed to Christmas movies. But also, again, let's have a horror movie set at Christmas so that we can watch different genres at Christmas. There was very little in terms of Christmas. What I do appreciate, and I want to say right up the bat, is Kate, the girlfriend, and the mum, very badass. They weren't damsels in distress. They didn't need rescuing. They solved their problems. They fought the gremlins all by themselves. And so I was very, very impressed, especially coming from an 80s movie, that they didn't need a white knight to come in, that they were independently badass of themselves. So
yep. In fact, the men in this movie were actually decidedly useless. I noticed that as well. That surprised me that was coming through strongly in an 80s movie. But yeah, absolutely, there was some very strong female lead in this one, and even the chief human villain in this was actually the Mrs. Deagle, who was threatening the dog and carrying on there. So it was a good pickup there. We might just go around and describe this movie badly. Who wants to go first with that?
What happens when you buy your kid a Furby?
I sat there and thought, I had one of them. Perhaps interesting ways to use the sports store.
I think Mrs. Deagle is a great combo of Ebenezer Scrooge all wrapped up in one beautiful evil person.
Yeah. Yep. How about a rowdy crowd at Snow White? So yes, go on, Linz.
So I wanted to pick up on something that Hunter Mitch, that the nostalgia of this movie. But I found myself, and maybe because we're watching these with a critical eye, as there was one panning shot going through the town, all walking through the little town, and you're feeling major town. So I don't personally feel the. You're seeing the nostalgia being portrayed, and the thing immediately went through my head: to what extent actually is sort of a white racist thing, like to return to a time when everyone was for the eccentric Chinese fellow who can sell the gremlin thing. And that just occurred to me.
There is an African American school teacher as well, so
there is, yes,
who dies per horror tropes.
That's correct. Yeah. One of the things that leapt out for me in this was the conversation that our two main characters who are trying to survive this night have with each other about Christmas, and how Christmas is not a pleasant time because it actually triggers the memories of when her father attempted to come down down the chimney and died in the process. And so for her, Christmas has become a difficult time, a time where she doesn't want to remember or recall, would rather it just be over. And I mean, I've run a number of blue Christmas services because when Christmas has been attached to a tragic or traumatic event, it can be really, really difficult to be the person who's experiencing sadness or anger or difficulty when everybody else is actually jamming along to Wham, singing Last Christmas, I Gave You My Heart kind of thing. So
I was thinking a little bit about that. Well, when I was noticed on Facebook, there's some of our colleagues down in Tasmania are remembering this time in Tassie last year when the kids lost their lives in that jumping castle that blew away, and what impact that had, 2 weeks out before Christmas or something.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. And I think at the moment of the families of the police officers up in Queensland, for whom this season will now be forever marked in that way as well. And so I guess there's some opportunity to think about, I guess, the ways in which we might be mindful of or be able to care for people during a season, whether it's Christmas or any other season, where everyone is one way and we're the other, and it can be I guess an additional burden to be so out of sync.
I want to say to a very lesser extent, is that for people like retail workers who have to work often extended hours leading up to Christmas, who are sometimes forced into the Christmas spirit, who are there to sell the presents that will be under the tree, and coming into this time just after COVID as well, where people are coming back and thinking that it's all okay, but we've had multiple increases in COVID cases because of Christmas time. And so from a purely a health point of view, we've got people who are overworked, we've got people who are stressed to find the right present, or even just because of work, trying to get the money to get the presents. And then we've got the added bonus of a plague which hasn't left us. Been increased because we're all in the shopping centres, close contacts all together. So looking at it from that point of view, Christmas isn't always ho 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 jolly, and having a horror movie to point that out can kind of be just something different, away from all the typical rom-coms that we see this time of year.
Yeah, I think things that I thought this probably like the one which is most borderline for me, and because I think generally Christmas are about the theme of people coming together or love winning out. like that. The message of Gremlins seems much responsibility, and I really love the Chinese man at the end where he said, with the Mogwai, what your society as gifts, and that sort of introspection about the way that, and just assume that something is there for to use, is a good message. Christmas message, I don't think.
Although, Lindsay, you better watch out. You better not cry. You better not pout. I'm telling you why, because Santa Claus is coming to town. He's certainly got a list of do's and don'ts, and I guess if the list of do's and don'ts, which include don't feed them after midnight, don't get them wet, these things, and don't let them into sunlight, they all have extreme consequences. I wonder whether or not, in order to keep a more ordered and disciplined society, we need more extreme consequences for breaking rules. Maybe that's the message of Gremlins.
I think because I missed out on nostalgia, as soon as I knew the rules from like pop culture, but when they're like, don't feed out of after midnight, I was like, well, what's the start time? Like,
yeah, midnight
is it
where?
midnight to midnight, and like midnight to 6 a.m.? Like, is 6 a.m. when you can feed them again? Like, what? Like, who decides that? So. And certainly, in a world of consequences, yeah, do we need the trees to start attacking the lumberjacks in order to start not chopping trees down? Like, do we need gremlins to start messing up technology to lessen our dependence on it?
Yeah, I think, as you've said, they're quite arbitrary. And they remind me particularly of the story of the.
Thoughts there?
Okay.
Sure. I think you're right about the rules. It does do when you watch it, because I watched it again a couple of weeks ago, and I hadn't seen it for some years beforehand. And you do think it was after midnight. What time midnight? Because you are right, it's different countries that we come from. And I think the other thing that kind of works, not exactly to the rules, but is the two gremlin characters themselves. So Mugwai, and then what becomes the Gremlins, and that really good, cute, cuddly, gorgeous little thing, versus not so nice, ugly looking, temperamental, and that extreme of good and evil, for want of a better word. There's a lot of putting down stereotypes in this, I think. Not that that's wrong, but it makes it easier to follow, perhaps.
And we see that a lot in science fiction, that baddies are usually scaly, they're usually ugly, they're usually clawed and frightening. One of the things that I did note, though, watching it this time, was that the gremlins that popped out from Gizmo at the beginning, they were already up to mischief when they were fluffy and cute. I noticed they already seemed to have, there was something about them, but that was kind of excusable, and we were kind of happy to have sort of fluffy, cute things behaving in impish kind of ways. But then when they transform, and they were also horrific and doing horrific things at the same time. The other thing I noticed was that the bar scene in Gremlins was quite fascinating. They were just having a good time. They were just playing cards and doing karaoke, and they were just having fun.
It wasn't until we stepped in that the problem started.
That's right. Yeah. And Kate was managing bar. She was tending bar. I did wonder with the water issue, they were drinking. So I guess it's okay as long as the water is on the inside of them, not on the outside of them.
And also with the splashes, I think there was a mention of pure water, or like just water. So maybe because beer is mixed with herbs and grains, that maybe it's no longer pure. So it's not something that will affect them any longer. So maybe that is there as well. But I feel like, drawing on what you said, Will, is that when they were cute and fluffy, you could call them mischief. Like it was all mischief. Like it was, oh, ha ha, we're going to hide this, or we're going to move this. And so it was cute, fluffy, and like a child would like think of as a practical joke. Whereas when they turned scaly and ugly, they got up to more what we would think of as adult bad behavior. They were smoking, they were drinking alcohol, they were gambling, they were shooting people. And so that's more of like a step up in terms of being bad, that it wasn't just, not to say that tying the dog up was any less bad, but it was definitely a young adult version of this is what a bad person looks like, as opposed to...
I'm still putting that dog incident on Mrs. Deagle. I think she's done that. There's no evidence that the Gremlins actually did that. I think that was Mrs. Deagle, and she did make threats, and she delivered on them.
There was a certain incongruity in Kate at the goblins at the bar, but picking up on Hunter Mitch's comment, I think one was when before the gets the bucket of chicken wings or whatever they are, he throws them in and they're all gobbling it up, and he offers one to the who says no. And for me, that fed into the sense that it's about the responsibility of a pet owner, so that they actually don't do the wrong thing, that give some freedom or whatever. And clearly this gentleman has over many years trained to be responsible and to control his or her urges, whereas the others, they just go for it, and once the transformation happens.
It's interesting. You could almost say that responsibility idea transfers to the young man whose name I have completely forgotten.
Billy,
that's right. But he's the one who feels he's got to stop them, and he's got to go in, arrow wound and all. And so he takes that responsibility, even though it mightn't quite be that he realizes it all. But yeah.
I'm just imagining the cleanup bill afterwards. I mean, they've absolutely destroyed the cinema, and there's cars upturned, and the department store has completely been turned over. Like this. This makes the headlines, surely, or was there a Men in Black style cover up to prevent anybody from hearing about this?
Wasn't it reported on the TV as a mass hallucination at the end?
A mass hallucination, yeah.
Right.
Yep. Yes,
yeah.
They did it to themselves. Yeah. Wonderful to see Corey Feldman in this one. I've always had a soft spot for good old Corey. He appeared as a child actor in many 80s movies, including Stand By Me and Goonies. But we don't hear much about Corey Feldman these days. But I hope he's doing well and has invested the money that he earned from being a child actor wisely, and as he's because he'd have to be in his late 50s now, wouldn't he? Surely.
I would say so.
Yeah. One of the other things we haven't talked about actually comes back in Jingle All the Way as well. Dad, the father who is good, and
hey, he's an inventor. He's creative.
I was going to say, stop products.
lousy inventions. And I did find myself wondering, the wife is so incredibly supportive, like your coffee and whatever.
Yeah.
And I thought, which, that supportiveness actually crosses and codependency. Was there a point where actually she should have? I'm not sure that you're actually that great. Maybe there's some other way you could channel your creativity.
Or maybe,
try something
especially
else.
in the 80s, if he was inventing, he was off in the man cave, the garage, and so she got to control the house, and putting up with inventions that only lasted like a few weeks. She got, her time to have the house pristine. I felt that he wasn't so much a deadbeat in the sense that, in the sense of what we use it now, but he loved his son. Like, as soon as he was like, "Oh, I need this for my son," like willing to go to all lengths to get it. So I felt there was still love. Like, the parents loved each other. There was no like fighting in between them, or it's definitely like you've done it again with the bad inventions, but no, like, see so often that the parents are fighting, or the parents are divorced, or like on the brink of, and you're like, why are you together? Simply for the kid. It felt like there was none of that, which I found refreshing for this type of movie. So you could probably call Arnold Schwarzenegger a deadbeat because he is putting certain things over the value of family. But in this case, yes, he's an inventor. Yes, he's going to go really close to Christmas to a convention, but I felt there was still love involved. So
often, so it was always touch and base.
Yeah, he was well connected. Although I just wished that he could have found a way to fasten that sword to the wall a bit better. It fell off every single time, and I remember watching it with Charlie earlier in this Christmas season, and he said to me, because I think it's the first time he'd watched it, he said they're going to use that sword later on in this movie, because so it was
sword.
There was lots of kind of setups for, this is going to happen. So they did quite a lot of foreshadowing in this particular movie that made us expect that certain things were going to happen along the way.
That way the kids can watch it, you see. They understand something's going to happen. It's not a surprise.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I have to say, though, if I lived in their little township, I wouldn't be calling the police if I had a problem. They certainly didn't seem to have a handle on their things there. Well, I think that's probably everything for Gremlins. Let's move on to Jingle All the Way. What a fantastic movie this is. Father having to work hard in the office, mother staying home baking cookies, and he had one job, just one job, and he didn't do it. That's my that would be my absurd take on this movie. Father has one job and stuffs it up.
He's also a guy who just doesn't know how to say no.
Yes.
I guess my but weird take on it would be harassing cops means something different for it might for others.
Yes.
Yeah, I was definitely going to go weaponized incompetence, or something like along the lines of, especially we're drawing attention to it a lot more, but like the emotional and physical burden that's it's not an even divide when it comes to husband and wife sometimes. Like I get that he was the sole breadwinner, the stay-at-home wife, and that is something that they've obviously negotiated within themselves, or it was just a product of the time. But yeah, when you're at Christmas time and your wife is doing all of the cooking and the groceries and setting up the tree, I'm guessing, and all of that, and you'll get given one task, I was very unsympathetic because like all of that, emotional burden of Christmas time. And this is the movie I would consider the most Christmas movie out of them, is that you had, like Will said, one job and you couldn't even do that. So I was very unsympathetic to this movie.
I did think that there was a really good scene of a riot in the Santa convention. I thought that was fantastic. And I loved that the Santas came in all different shapes and sizes. There was very small Santas to very large Santas. And Arnold Schwarzenegger gets to do his usual action kind of box up. But he's hesitant to punch a Santa Claus, isn't he? I mean, it's I don't know. Anybody ever punched a Santa Claus?
Can't say
Can't
I have.
say that I have. No.
It does seem to be a cardinal sin, doesn't it?
I can't help thinking that the moral of this particular movie is that if you want a good movie, all you need is the Terminator, the young Darth, the Simpsons, Troy McClure, and Tom Hanks's wife. Perfect.
Reaching from everywhere, weren't they? It was very good to see a young Anakin Skywalker in amongst this one. Some good cast in this movie. I would have to say that the plot was reasonably good as well, and I think it was well executed. So I really enjoyed this one. This is one of my go-to movies each year.
I think I probably. I would say it's probably one of the least Christmassy for me. And I think it's the stress of it's the gift or the being seen as the best dad that comes over everything. So maybe that's saying more about me, that I love the family and the gathering, but just all of the stress and then to achieve is done through greater or lesser violence. Yep. So not.
I mean, it is interesting that that the transformation for a character, like he recognizes that he's done the wrong thing and he hasn't put enough emphasis on the family or whatever. Actually, a transformation. It's just that he somehow gets sucked into this thing and saves the day as an action hero. Change or a sense that he commits himself to being different. So anyway.
Well, and the pressure to conform and to provide leads him to trying to steal someone else's presents and accidentally setting fire to his neighbour's house. So whether or not we think that Ted deserved to have his house set on fire or not, that's another question. It does kind of bring up this kind of intense pressure that capitalism does escalate us towards if we're not actually thinking about, well, what's really important here. And I guess for me, there was, I think, Jay, what you were saying really I picked up on was that there's a significant part of being responsible that comes from being prepared to be vulnerable and to be confessional. And so he's having the reason why this story escalates is because he's completely unwilling to actually admit that he hasn't done what he said he would do. And so all he had to do was actually just face the music and say, look, I didn't do it. Here's the fluffy henchman no one wants. And there would have been forgiveness and it could have moved forward. But instead, he has to compound a lie upon lie and action upon action until, you're right, Lindsay, suddenly in the street dressed as Turbo Man, actually trying to do battle with the evil post office guy.
I suppose it's another persona that he takes on as well. So they almost get another step away from being dad and being the family unit, because now instead of being dad, he's Turbo Man.
Yep.
And that's better than who he was before.
There's a really telling line that he and the postman have when there's coffee shop or whatever, and the postman says, "One chance a year to prove that we're not screw-ups." And I mean, that's the extent of good parenting, is you present at Christmas and you've done your one thing for the year. Really?
Yeah, it's a sad indictment on 80s dads, isn't it? I mean, that's the distance, that's the absence, the level of the absence that exists.
Well, I remember that my dad was very, very much like the career dad and the work dad, and bringing home the breadwinner. Not that my mum didn't work, but the majority of the work was done by dad. And because he was so distant, it was almost like a big deal when he came home. Like a big deal that he came home before we went to bed, and a big deal that he had a day off for Christmas. And so he was the one that gave us the money and gave us the presents. It was like we made such a big deal about it as kids that I almost feel bad for my mum that we didn't pay more attention or didn't appreciate in the moments as well, that just purely because she was the one picking us up from schools and doing all the after school activities, and she was just always there, whereas dad, it was like to a neglectful point, almost so bad that we made such a big deal about it. So in this same sense, where it's like you get the one chance, it's like because he was a bad parent, because he in his to do something for his family, which was to make money to give them a good life, to be comfortable. But in that sense for the kid, I remember feeling, it was such a big deal when dad got a day off, because we just never saw him. So I can relate to that a bit. And capitalism sucks.
There's something of that, I guess, Catholic idea of paying indulgences. That there's this idea that Christmas presents become the way we buy back or repent from what we might have done for the rest of the year. And certainly, I think that's something that we would want to challenge in this movie, to actually say, we can't just make up for 364 days by actually turning up on the one day of the year. So yeah, it's fascinating.
I think this is a movie that wants to have it both ways. Like it wants playing with, highlighting some of the terrorization and capitalism, but in just kind of, capitalism can bring the family, have paid enough money, you can make up for yourself. It really wants to play it both ways.
Yeah, it's achieving the gift is what wins the day, not being the people.
Yep, absolutely. And
I hate Booster so much.
Oh, poor Booster. Poor Booster. Pink and fluffy Booster.
Yep.
It's the toy I would have wanted. I mean, everyone's got a Turbo Man. Who wants to be have the toy everyone's got? Absolutely. Well, our final offering for today is the most recent. So we've got 3 nostalgia films that we've been able to unpack, but just this year, the Guardians of the Galaxy Christmas special has been released, and it's been a fascinating, once again, asking this question about gift giving and home and all of these things. How might we describe our Guardians of the Galaxy Christmas special in an obtuse or absurd way?
Well, I think they say it themselves. It's human trafficking.
Yep. Go. I had bringing home the bacon for Christmas.
Oh yeah.
What do you think? Yeah.
Very good.
Drax's take on it. You know, Christmas is dangerous and sentimental.
Yes, yeah. So we've got this amazing story where they want to do something good for their friend. They're recognizing their friend is a bit sad. They've lost, so we're in that blue Christmas space again, and so they want to do something good, something nice, and so they come up with this fantastic strategy to get him the ultimate Christmas present. What do we think about kidnapping for Christmas?
Just reminded me of that. Oh, sorry, Jay, you go.
Go, Jay.
Oh,
It's your turn, Jay. Go. Yeah.
I was wondering whether it probably highlighted to me how important a knowledge of culture is. Because for these people, they were trying their hardest, but they had no idea what Christmas is on Earth. They're a little bit more removed than some of us here, but it's that awareness, I suppose, as we deal within, for my work and different cultures and different congregational members, particularly the university stuff, you can never assume you know what's going on. You've got to always ask the questions. So it's that cultural exploring.
Yeah, and jumping off that, like if I was to try and connect to a Jewish person on Hanukkah, which is around this time, I would have no idea. I have no idea about Hanukkah, so it would be very the same. I'd hope I wouldn't kidnap anyone, but maybe if I misunderstood the culture enough. So yeah, that's a very good point with that. So
I will never forget a beautiful, sorry, Linz, I'll just jump in. A beautiful family I celebrated the evening meal of Ramadan with, a Muslim family when I was at college. And we were there particularly to learn. And we asked them us Christians, asked them a whole lot of questions. And then the Muslim family said, "Can we ask you some?" And we went, "Sure." And the first one they said was, "Do you really eat flesh and drink blood?" And I thought that's a culture that you have no knowledge of. Great question. Sorry, go, Linz.
The very point that you've both been talking about is highlighted by conversation with the singers when they're first singing the Christmas. Peter refers to that that's not in the law, and it struck me as that we have created this Christmas law, and presents and snow and tree, to do with the true law of Christmas. The that God became incarnate in the person of Jesus. Interesting, he's saying, no, that's not in the law, and I'm thinking, or has nothing to do with the real law that should be behind Christmas.
Yep, and even when
funny
we,
because
I was going to say,
Peter
Lindsay
wasn't. Peter was removed as well from it. Like he an 80s view of it, so he also was like from a particular time, whereas now there's extra law or different law, or we might have more the nativity. Sorry, go Will.
So yeah, and even if we are going to drill down into the law, I mean, I've seen lots of signs outside churches during this season to say Jesus is the reason for the season, which is a very trite kind of Christmas cardy slogan you can put up. But then we'll see pictures of the shepherds, the angels, the wise men, all around a very neat, tidy stable with a manger in it, and the star is always directly above, as if there was a point of light above that the wise men followed from afar. So the law has gotten all tangled up as well. That this holy night that we sing about was probably not a night where all of those things occurred, but they potentially occurred over a series of nights, even weeks, months, possibly years. And so there is a sense in which we have to be very careful of cultural appropriation, because what we think we know the law to be may actually not be the law as it stands at all.
Well, someone pointed out that in the law itself, we say that the shepherds were watching their flocks by night. That only happens in summer months. So we have this idea, because it's Northern Hemisphere based, of snow and cold and jackets and scarves, whereas Jesus was probably born in the summer months, or at the very least where the shepherds came and met Jesus. So we should be celebrating in the Southern Hemisphere over winter, not the Northern Hemisphere, and that's just even that little bit of law taken in if you really sit down and think about it, what happens. And then you get the secular law of the man who brings the presents for free and breaks into your house. And I remember we didn't have a chimney growing up. We were in tropical North Queensland. What chimney? So the parents had to make up like, oh, he'll come through the window, or like we'll just leave it open a little bit and he'll be able to get in, and have to make up all these things and to get around the fact that the law didn't match our reality either. So
one of the things that I was thinking about with this one, as well as all, how much our conception of Christmas is around that Northern Hemisphere sort of location. And I understand that really well, because I actually were in a Northern Hemisphere country where it did. As now someone who is an Australian and lives in, it's kind of bizarre that we don't think it's snow, and it's like, well, so what are we saying to Australia for the relevance of Christmas if it has to?
So I force myself to like Christmas carols, otherwise being in retail I'd go insane, but there is one Christmas carol I absolutely cannot stand, no matter how many times you play it, and it is Feed the World. Now I know it's for charity and I get that, I love, but there's a line in it that says, because they're all Northern Hemisphere based, especially London, England, that type of thing, where the line is, there'll be no snow in Africa this Christmas. And the reason I hate it is because, like, duh. Like, do you not know geography? Of course there's no snow. It's the middle of summer for Africa. And they say it like, oh, no, there's really bad things happening. It's like, do you guys not understand what's going on in the world? Like, so when it comes to pine trees, we've got eucalyptus. And I get it, like, because especially at the beginning you said, Jay, that, it has to have snow and stuff, but it's like, we're a Christmas movie set on Bondi Beach and we have to have the sunscreen because it's in summer and stuff. So
maybe we should be having a conversation with Paddy McRae, but instead of the next season of Irreverent, does us an Australian Christmas movie.
We need it. Yep, an Australian. We need the white boomers. Yeah, look, I do like the 6 white boomers. Although the other year, a couple of years ago, I found a picture of 6 men in their 60s sitting on a stage at the International Global Women's Conference, and I thought maybe that's what the 6 white boomers might actually be. But no, I do love the 6 white boomers, and I love the North Wind, under the eaves. Look, one of my favorite Christmas carols is the Christmas carol Santa Never Made It Into Darwin, which actually talks about Cyclone Tracy, a really tragic event that actually occurred in Australia. Maybe we need a Cyclone Tracy, Bruce Willis, Darwin Christmas movie, kind of picking up on the real events that actually occurred during that Christmas.
Something which might be a little controversial, which is looking at, I reckon the Guardians of the Galaxy Christmas movie, and the reason because the one theme that it seemed to have, the others did, was self-sacrifice and self-giving.
Mm.
Our Christian tradition is actually part of the whole for Christmas, and here we had, do something special and went to big trouble. And even then, at the end, Kevin Bacon, and him saying to his, a bit late, I think these people need to understand about Christmas, sing a song to them and whatever. So I really love sacrifice and self-giving in this one, that the others, except perhaps a little bit in Jingle All the Way, where the boy gives the prize, to the bad guy to take for his son, because he's got. So I love that about the Guardians of the Galaxy one.
It was about family, like the Guardians of the Galaxy itself, like even the regular ones are about your found family. And so having this, like, we need to do something special, it does say more about Christmas than it, even though they end up with all the lights and the candy canes and the strange little men, green men that you get to keep, which I really liked. The gift giving scene where she's on her, Mantis is like, no, we have to get Kevin Bacon, and you're the one that didn't hold on to your green man. But then at the end, she knew that it was important to Drax anyway, so she went and got it, or got another one. And so it became more about family, even at the end when she was like, I'm your sister. And even without that, you could just be like, no, found family, go for it.
So that was a
Definitely
nice little
ticks all the
Easter egg
boxes.
that kind of was revealed in this one. I don't know, had that been revealed in comics or somewhere beforehand, or was that a totally new thing for the Marvel Universe, that Mantis and Peter are siblings?
I don't want to say new, but it definitely fits into the MCU that they were siblings. So,
and it makes sense, because that's where they found her. So on his father's home planet. So
I think perhaps, as you say, Mitch, the gift giving was more, rather than what's the biggest, most expensive, most wowsome thing, but it was a lot deeper, and what would speak to that person and really show the love that you wanted to give in that giving.
Yep. Yeah, the intent was there. It's the thought that counts, we often hear. And sometimes a homemade gift can actually be more treasured than the most expensive thing you could buy. I think the other side of that jumped out for me as well was when Kevin Bacon was presented, it was very clear that he was compelled to be there, that Mantis had used her power to make it so that he could not refuse to be a part of what was happening. And so what was needed to make the gift authentic was actually that there was no level of compulsion or obligation. And that's not easy to find these days, that we're actually, as a society, especially in Australia, constantly feeling that we need to toe the line or be compelled to behave in a particular way. And when we're dragged to actually do the right thing, it's nowhere near as amazing or wonderful than when we actually make the choice to do it. And so that made Kevin's decision to stay. Good on you, Kevin. To stay and actually made it all the more a magnificent gift that he made the choice to be there. Big shout out to all those who may be thinking about buying pets for people this Christmas. Don't do it. The number of pets that actually end up in pounds after Christmas is frighteningly astonishing. It's buy a pet any other time of the year, but don't do it for Christmas. You shouldn't surprise somebody with a Kevin Bacon, because they may not want to be there.
I was very happy with Cosmo. I wanted to put that out. I think Cosmo is one of my favorite.
So that's been good. We've covered our 4 Christmas movies for this year. It's the first time Never Odd or Even has done a Christmas special in the 3 years we've been running. So it's a new thing. I know what I got for Christmas this year already, and that's COVID. So that's going to be wonderful. I'm hoping and praying that my symptoms will be all gone by Friday, so that I can actually make the journey to where my family is and be reunited with them. They're all far away from me at the moment. So that in itself, a Christmas movie to hope for in front of me.
Yep, maybe that's the new 2020s or 2025's Christmas movie, the COVID version thereof.
Yes.
Well, I'm
Absolutely.
still a novid. I still have, my Christmas wishes to stay that way. Is that someone gives me not a pet, but it's very excited when I saw the Robbie the Robot lookalike at the Invention Carnival, and I thought, oh, it's Robbie.
I was at Chadstone. I know. I said I was at Chadstone the other day, and they have a little robot at their information centre who answers people's questions and then tells them points which direction you have to go.
Oh, I love it.
Well, that's probably all we need to do today. Wishing you all out there a very Merry Christmas, whatever that means to you, and recognising that at this time of the year, for so many different people from different parts of this planet that we inhabit, that there are different reasons for the season. Our task here at Never Odd or Even is to think critically, to delve deeply, and to explore the possibilities, to playfully engage. And I think we've done that well today, playfully engaging with 3 movies. Final word, I think, though, is from each of us to finish off with: is Die Hard a Christmas movie, or is Bruce Willis completely right when he says that it's not a Christmas movie?
Yeah, I'm going to call it a Christmas movie. Yeah.
Yeah, I think I agree.
They want it to be a Christmas movie. It is a Christmas movie. Not the best one.
Well, stay tuned for next year. I have already done some thinking about next year's Christmas movies, and I'm thinking that next year we're going to go for Lethal Weapon as a Christmas movie. We're gonna have a look at the Muppet Christmas Carol, which is actually a good classic Christmas movie, and also Love Actually. So we're gonna get to see old Hans Gruber. What happens when Hans Gruber marries Emma Thompson? That'll be also good. I know that after watching Love Actually, I wanted to throw him off a building after that one. So perhaps we can talk about that more next year. But hopefully there'll be another Christmas special that's made next year that we can tap into as well as our 4th. But until then, I've been Odd Rev, and it's been wonderful to have Hunter Mitch, Rev J, and Science Officer Linz with us today as we've explored these Christmas movies.
Thank you, Will.
Bye.
See ya.